Well, we have fierce rapids and tidal currents. But first, let me establish where we are in North Wales. So this is week 2 of our tour of North Wales. Last week, we were up in the mountains of Eryri, what you might know as Snowdonia. And we headed north for this week, and we've headed to that tiny, narrow strait called the Menai Strait. Now, if you look behind me, you can see a stretch of it. It's a very long, narrow stretch. It runs about 25 kilometers, way beyond what you can see here. But what's really interesting is that locally, the Menai Strait is known as Afon Menai, which means the river Menai. Now, you can see at low tide, it's hard to read, but at high tide, when you see here, what you can see is why people would have called it, and still do in some ways, a river, because it very much looks like one. But I assure you, this is very much a marine environment. It's fed by tidal currents that enter the channel on two sides, on the northeast and the southwest. So an absolutely amazing spot. Now, if you look across to the island of Anglesey, that island will actually shelter the strait from the open ocean that's on the other side, so it shelters it from all the wave action. So a really sheltered but still dynamic environment because of those tides. And of course, the tides are the one dependable, predictable feature here. So a few days ago, I headed out at low tide with marine ecologist Paul Brazier for a spot of rock pooling on the strait. So, let's find a good spot.
The further down you go, the better it gets, basically.
Yeah. What makes the Menai Strait such a special marine habitat?
It's really down to the flow of water, I reckon. The strait is incredibly tidal, and so there's loads of water rushing through here. It connects the water body with from outside of the strait, so bringing in juveniles and bringing in settling animals and plants. But it also brings the nutrients through.
So a little bit like a conveyor belt of food going past.
Yeah. And so within the whole of the Menai Strait, you've got an incredible variety of habitats. Every habitat has got its different collection of animals and plants, so along the whole stretch it's very diverse.
It's a case of, I guess, getting stuck in, right?
Absolutely. There's a few loose boulders here, which is good. Got a little edible crab.
Edible crab?
Beautiful.
So in Cornwall, we always think that that crimping looks like a pasty.
Yeah.
Do you say the same thing up here?
Yeah, the pie crust. Well, yeah, pie crust. In Cornwall, it's a pasty. In
Wales, it's a pie crust.
A lovely little cushion star. There's quite a few of those around here, but you don't find them everywhere, so they're a bit of a novelty, really, when you do find them.
And everyone loves a cushion star, obviously.
Absolutely, yes, yeah. We've got some dog whelk eggs here. And actually some baby dog whelks.
Right next to them.
And it wasn't long before Paul found what I really came here to see.
Oh, look. Look what we've got here.
Oh, wow. So that is a sea slope. It's beautiful. It's got quite sort of elaborate, almost like tentacles, fronds all along the body. Now, what are those called? The structures.
They're amazing, actually. They are amazing. They've got rhinophores, which are the tentacles at the front, and then they've what they're called kerata, all these apparently tentacles on the back. And those are actually full of stinging cells which they've collected from eating sea fur. So they eat the sea fur, and rather than digesting everything, they manage to move the stinging cells to the back of their bodies as a protection. So they're wearing a sort of a coat of stinging cells.
Which they've recruited from another species.
Yeah.
That is
brilliant.
Cool.
Absolutely brilliant they are.
Well, what I also think is cool is that you're not sure what species this is, and you've been rock pooling here for 20 years. So this is quite special.
This is where the microscope comes out again, just to look at those finer details.
So that's going to have a closer inspection at some point.
Yeah.
Brilliant. I can't wait to find out what that is. Well, that was definitely an ID challenge for Paul, but he thinks that what we found there was a Phaseolina bostoniensis. Now, looking at it again, this is actually quite an interesting species. It doesn't have a common name. It was first described in 1838 in Massachusetts Bay, all the way on the other side of the Atlantic, but now confirmed around 2020 with some DNA sequencing work that it is indeed the same species, and it's known as an amphi-Atlantic species. So that means it's the same species found on either side of the Atlantic. So absolutely brilliant to see an unusual species here.